part 2 of the video that I was doing. I think I fell into some codependent patterns. So my husband's with the kids right now, and I'm really wanting to make this video and process some of the things that I'm going through, as well as share it, because it's so powerful what I'm learning about familial liberation and emotional liberation. And it is so painful to be expected to be someone that we're not. And so yeah, I think I fell into some codependent patterns, like I need to get the baby even though I knew that he had the baby, but like just in case, I was like but the honestly, like, naming it gives relief to our nervous system. To acknowledge it is really powerful. And that's part of the liberation, is the awareness and ability to share this with somebody. Because this stuff is so relatable. It is widespread systemic dysfunction. And if you just name it, you will see almost all women, all people nodding in understanding. And it's the staying silent part and the isolation that is so painful. And I'm learning that healing really does happen in communities. And it's like the isolation of the nuclear family. It is so traumatic. And I'm just starting to understand this. Like, before, it would be like, oh wow, what is wrong with me that I can't be the mother that my family deserves or needs? And no, it's not that at all. It is so traumatic. If you think about it, a woman, and I'm thinking about that song Labor right now. You make me do too much labor. It's like, what is it? Yeah, I don't know all the lyrics, but if you want to look it up, it's so, it's like the patriarchal toxic cycle that we're all exposed to and we're all conditioned by, and it is really, really hard to break free of that. You need support. You need it. You need people that are traveling off the beaten path and trying to do something new in terms of liberation and seeing a vision and discussing it together. There are so little spaces to hold grief for what is going on. It's heartbreaking. And so when you go and see these communities, and for me, it's been nonviolent communication, liberation communities, and namely, I'm going to say Miki Kashtan. She has like this beautiful systemic lens that she does, and she brings the power and privilege like things to it, where she will invite people that have, like, people that are Asian, people that are of color, to speak in the large group before white people. And it's just so like, wow, to raise up our voices and to have this kind of like experience of talking about really, really hard things, violent things, systemic violence, that it's like we are conditioned to just ignore or normalize or just be depressed over. There's no real space to mourn that. I'm getting emotional. So when you have these communities that are committed to nonviolence and liberation and supporting one another, and of course there's conflicts in these communities too, and then there's ways to solve it. And hopefully there's like a way to get needs met. And it's really focused on needs. And we bring it back to what is our need? Because that points to the vision rather than what do I not want, which is the suffering. And so um, it has been so healing for me to hear stories of sexual abuse. And I'm not like saying like I'm celebrating these stories. I am truly heartbroken by what I've heard in that class. And I am celebrating the fact that there is space to mourn this in silence, um, with support, and just like the shock of it, just talking about it. We talk about, yeah, like uh, family dynamics. We talk about work dynamics, the power over element, how it is so normalized since child rearing, and like we need to prepare these kids for the real world. Well, no, it's like you need to be their safe space so that um when they do get to the real world, like they have acknowledgement of their feelings and their needs and insight onto what is important to them rather than passing down this familial trauma and systemic trauma of molding a baby into someone that's sleeping normal hours or whatever normal is, like by like override the biological stuff, right? Let's just go to the um and it's not even the parents' fault. Like, there's so much empathy because these parents have been conditioned themselves and maybe they were sleep trained themselves and that's what's familiar to them too. So it's not about blaming the parents. It's about having empathy for all. And yeah, and I think in an attempt to meet needs because there's a lack of clarity, it's like, oh, I want to um make this person, like for example the sleeping situation. Like, I, for convenience and ease, to meet those needs, I'm going to do the sleep training. But there's a whole host of other needs that are not being met, that are being broken, like trust, respect for baby, choice. They don't have a choice when they're naturally, like, biologically wired to be right near you when you're sleeping. And so I'm like so passionate about this. And just to bring awareness to this is everything. Awareness is liberation, is a quote that I heard. Because without awareness, these cycles will just be on autopilot. And yeah, like, because it's so ingrained in us, the trauma, like, and like, say we were verbally abused or physically abused and by our caretaker to be a better child, punished. Like that literally, now there's so many studies that it sends the body into fight or flight mode and it teaches them how to abuse others when they don't get what they want or need from somebody. That's like totally like, yeah, it's so weird, but it's so normalized and it's not okay. Um and so props to you if you're a cycle breaker that is trying to undo like so much of your conditioning. It takes a lot of work, a lot of insight, and a lot of willingness to dive deep into like what has happened to me, giving myself compassion and not blaming anyone. You know, it's like so revolutionary to not blame anyone because we're always looking for whose fault is this? Like, who it's, and then we turn inwards too. It's like, why did I just criticize myself? I'm a horrible person. Why can't I get out of this way of thinking? Well, it's about like just removing ourselves. And it sounds simple how I'm like, just remove yourself from this paradigm. No, it takes a lot of practice and a ton of support. And reading, listening, getting therapy, doing like EMDR, this butterfly tapping, finding techniques like EFT that really like, you know, um, set you free. That these things are proven to rewire your brain and rewire how our bodies respond to trauma. So it's like our bodies hold so much wisdom and they heal innately. And we have been taught since children to override all of that. Like, we know how to heal, like, we know how to shake it off. Like, if we just experience something really terrifying or something real traumatic, something really hard, or, like, we know how to dance, we know how to sing, we want to do these things. Um, but then it's like there's such a focus on how do we like make it? How do we make money? How do we become this good person, like a nice person? And then we override all of our boundaries, and things like that. And again, this isn't to like be like, hey, you're a people pleaser and I'm a people pleaser. Why am I so horrible? Like, can't get my like life together. I'm just people pleaser, and my mom is, and she passed that down to me. Um, Part of it is like knowing that judgment and hearing it and be like, oh, okay, like I just had a judgment. um, and judgments are not accurate. They're trying to protect us when it's not. Um, it's not actually protecting us. It's creating a lot of internal chaos. So even being like, replacing that with more kinder words like, I'm learning how to discern when I'm judging myself because that is self punishing. And then I'm learning how to undo this in my body because it's so familiar. Every time I feel uncomfortable, I start to beat myself up. And there's nothing wrong with that because systemically, that's what people are conditioned to do. You think about it, like parents that are like punishing their kids for not being good enough or whatever it is, but it's like we are good enough for even as doing nothing. Like, we are good enough. We are enough. And every single message almost tells us, except for like of course these encouraging messages of people that are healing and wanting to spread this message of encouragement and liberation. um and yeah, like spread this beautiful message of light. And for most of the world, like all the marketing campaigns, all the things, it's all about how do I make women feel not enough? How do I make men feel like they need to be more? How do I make men ashamed of their feminine side, of their like emotional side? How do, like men that are really in touch with their emotions are freaking amazing for the world. It's really healing. And then women, we're really in touch with our emotions. And we've been trained to put other people's feelings first. So it's pretty screwed up. And then we have to unlearn this now as adults. It's very hard. It's very, very hard. Almost impossible if you don't do it. Um, yeah, like there's a faith element to it. It's envisioning things before you see it, trusting in God, trusting in your innate wisdom that God has given you, and also finding the communities because, yeah, the world is like so isolating. It's like you need to do this by yourself. well, there's so many things that you just cannot do by yourself. And that's such a lie. It's like you need to make it on your own and get all the glory or whatever it is. But it's like we need each other. We need each other's encouragement. We need each other holding space for our grief, like holding space in a way that is completely accepting the present moment without needing to change it. And so many of us as children, we didn't get that. There's like parents that are like, stop crying, stop being a baby. Like, because they were told that, right? Society wise, this is not a good thing to be crying. This is a sign of weakness to show vulnerability. You need to be strong by being real tough, um, which creates so much violence because crying is a way to cleanse ourselves of disappointment, of sadness, of grief, of having an unmet need that, of clarity, of connecting to our bodies. It's truly beautiful when we cry. And so we turn that when we're unable to do that and we're trained out of it. Yeah, I'm just feeling like so much sorrow because sometimes, I feel like I want to cry. Um, and I'm a really sensitive person, and people have told me I cry for others too. And I feel that, I feel that I have like a hair trigger on my crying, and in me crying and mourning, other people can get in touch with their own mourning also. And so I feel like it's a real gift for me that was misunderstood by my parents, as they would be like, okay, well, let's stop the conversation right now. Or, again, a lack of holding space um, for whatever experience someone is going through. And if there's like pure acceptance and just like being with somebody and being present, that emotion doesn't get stuck in our bodies. It truly is like able to be expressed. And it's so freeing. And that's the liberation there. And so it's super powerful to have that space being held for you in communities, because then you learn it to do it for yourself if you haven't understood how to do that for yourself. And of course, you can learn how to do that. But it really is about internal validation, changing the lens from external validation to internal validation, and trusting our bodies, trusting our beautiful souls that we know, yeah, what we need. And we just need to get clarity around needs, because it's like taboo or like not okay to selfish. It's to have your needs. And we need to spend our lives serving other people, trying to guess their needs without clarity. And then being miserable in the process, and everybody's just being miserable, and all the indirect communication, which is violence, violent communication, when we're trying to spend all of our energy trying to, I guess that's where the people pleasing is, right? We're trying to spend our energy guessing other people's needs, trying to meet them, and then we get upset. It's like, I tried to do something for you, you didn't even want it. But yeah, it's not our fault, because that's what we've known all of our life. That's what we've been taught. So how could it possibly be our fault? It's not. That's what most people learn and are taught through the actions of society, of schools, of parents, of adults and children, and things like that. So I hope this was helpful. Yeah, I'll be doing more content around Asian American mental health, especially. But I just love exploring nonviolent communication and liberation. And I'll have guests as well talking about all this yummy, yummy, yummy stuff. And yeah, just just quickly on Asian American, there's a like a whole cultural aspect too, and there's so many barriers. Like we need to be xiaoxuan in China, like respect our elders and do everything that they say, pretty much. And that literally sets us up for abuse and toxicity, because we will just like are expected and trained into putting our needs aside for other people. And there's no clarity for our needs. And the beautiful thing is when we do connect to our needs, it's not selfish because we actually connect on this like beautiful level. We're able to get in touch with our hearts and our desires, and then we're able to express it fully. Because the other way is just like, I don't want you to do this. I don't want this for a relationship. But it's like, no, this is my vision. This is my passion. This is my heart right here. And in that, we actually connect to other people so much deeper, and we hold space for their needs so much more because we're like taking care of ourselves. And that is just like this huge lie is like, put yourself aside, sacrifice yourself, take care of everyone else. That makes you a good person. Well, no more. No more. In order to get in touch with someone else's needs, we need to be clear about our needs first. And that's not to say like never consider anyone's needs. Of course, that's like part of the puzzle, but it's hard to take care of someone else when you don't have any fuel yourself or your oxygen mask, as a teacher of mine always says, like, put on your own oxygen mask. It's very important to do that because we're trained to go jump to take care of everyone else and leave our hearts by the wayside. And that is called self abandoning. That is called external validation and people pleasing and seeking others. Um, so it is time for a new way, a new day, and we're doing this together. So, yeah, leave a comment if you have any questions, if there's anything you want to explore, if anything really resonated with you. I will be doing EFT tapping on clearing generational trauma, on yeah, like on money trauma, on so many things, all kinds of like codependent patterns, yeah, liberation from judgment, liberation from self-criticism. So stay tuned. I'm so excited you're here, and thank you for watching.